Most people go day to day without a plan, and they start to wonder why, one, they aren't accomplishing their goals, and two, why they aren't feeling happy and fulfilled in their life. So in today's video, if you fall in that category, I want to help you turn that around by teaching you a really simple way on how to design the ideal day. Welcome to Coffee Chats with Chett. I'm Chett. I'm currently an executive working at a financial services organization, and one of my biggest passions is to help people chase their potential. And so I've created this channel, which is a quiet and cozy little space for us in the internet where we can connect on a weekly basis, where I can share something with you, something that I've read, something that I'm learning, or something that I've experienced or am experiencing that I can share with you with a coaching question, all with the intention of helping you continue to grow. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you continue to join. And I would love to hear what you're learning, and any questions that you have, please leave in the comments below. Now let's dive into the video. So when it comes to designing your ideal day, I want you to think about three things. So the first thing is the buckets. So the buckets are the things in your life that are most important to you. So think about the major categories. So health, work, fitness, family, social, whatever matters most to you. Think about those as your big buckets. The second thing is the goals that you have that are connected to those buckets. And then the third thing is your energy. So let me break that down a little bit more for you. Come here. All right. So the three things that I just mentioned. So 1, your buckets. 2, your goals, and 3, your energy. And so why I break it down like this is because it's first important to understand what really matters to you in your life. It also is important for you to know where you're anchoring yourself. So once you know what's really important to you in your life, it's really important to know what areas are you looking to improve in, or what are you looking to achieve, so that you can continue to make sure that you're allocating appropriate time to progressing on your goals. And lastly, I think that this is a category that is often overlooked, is understanding your energy. So understanding who you are as a unique individual and what you need to do in order to create sustained levels of energy, so that you can make sure that you're prioritizing the things that really matter to you. You're clear and you have the energy that you need in order to reach your goals. And so I'll give you an example here. So when it comes to my buckets, I really only have 3. So the first one is my health. My second one is my family. And my third one is work. And I've intentionally put them in this order because I need to make sure that I'm first taking care of me in order to achieve or fulfill or do anything really that I want in my life. I also need to make sure that I have a solid foundation at home where my relationship is healthy and I'm taking care of that, as well as my 2 children. And if everything is going great here, I have this really amazing foundation that helps me do extraordinary things at work. And so I then take these 3 categories and break down different goals that I have in each one of those categories. And so one example is to exercise daily, because I know that that's a big boost for me. My second is to get at least 6 hours of sleep. I have 2 children right now who are under the age of 3, and so 6 hours is unfortunately what I have time for, but ideally this is 7 to 8 for me. So those are 2 examples of my health goals. For my family goals, one goal is to have a date with my spouse every week, a date with each kid, and daily dinner. And so that gives me a really great anchoring on what I need to do in order to make sure that I am prioritizing these buckets accordingly. And then for the third one is work. I'm not going to list all my work goals, but I do have quite a bit. A lot of my work goals as an executive, the organization that I'm working for, are written into, and I have about 5 of them. And so I make sure that those are up in my office so that I'm constantly being reminded of what I need to prioritize in my calendar from a work perspective. And then the last thing is energy. So I'll just take up this little piece of paper here. And so when it comes to energy, there's 2 things that I like to combine and think about. So one is my me-ness, or for you, it's your you-ness, as well as research. And what I mean by research, it's really understanding what are the tried and true methods that have been studied that I know that if I were to execute on will help increase my overall energy and help me sustain the levels that I need to sustain in order to fulfill my buckets and achieve my goals. And so as an example, I am an introvert. I know that about myself, which means I need time for myself in order to recharge. I also know that mornings are when I feel the most clarity. And so that's important for me to know because I'm someone who is an executive, like I said, and so I have a lot of meetings that I have to go to. The last audit that I did was around 35 to 40 hours a week. My goal is to actually get that down to 25 to 30 hours so that I have more time in my calendar to do the work that I need to get done that doesn't involve being in a meeting. And knowing that mornings or when I have the most mental clarity is also important for me so that I can be really intentional with my schedule. And then from a research perspective, I know that there are 5 things that I can do and that we can do that can help increase our overall energy management throughout the day. And so the first one's sleep. The second is nutrition. The third one is getting out into nature. The fourth one is meditation. And the last one is exercise. So these are all things that are tried and true, proven through research that if done can actually help to increase your overall energy. And so for me, I take this as my blueprint and then I look at my calendar and my day. And I try to be as proactive as possible to make sure that I am prioritizing my buckets each and every day. I'm really clear on the goals that I'm looking to achieve. And I have this awareness both of myself and how I operate, as well as some research nuggets that are important for me to be mindful of when it comes to planning out my ideal day. So I take all of this, and then step 2 is to actually start to design what your calendar and what your schedule could look like. So let's dive into that. So this is how I would go about designing my ideal day. And I actually do go about designing it just like this. So 5:30 would be wake up. And this is where I have my first dose of nutrition. And so I have a nutrition stack and all of my vitamins that I consume at this time and a bunch of protein to really help set me up to sustain me, my energy throughout the day. 6 o'clock a.m. This is when I start to read. I really enjoy reading and learning and sharing it with all of you. And so this is prime time for me to do that. 6:50 a.m. is when I start to do a quick 10-minute meditation to help really give me, again, more energy from a research perspective to really help inject my day with a lot of clarity and positive intention. 7:15 is when I do my exercise. 8:15 is when I would come back and get ready for work. And then from 8:45 to 10:30 a.m., ideally, I have a work block in my calendar where I have heads down work and I can get done anything that I need to read, review, emails, anything that I need to think about or give feedback on. Ideally, I do it all in this block. And then from 10:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., this is when ideally I do my meeting sprint. And so I go essentially back to back to back meetings from 10:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. I try to get 5-minute transition time so that I have time for bio break, more food, whatever I need, in order to make sure I have enough energy to really get through the day. And if it's a meeting where it's just something that I need to watch versus participate, I have a little rule with myself where if it's something that I'm watching, then I'll jump on my walking treadmill and I'll try to keep moving throughout that so that, again, I have a bit of a energizer. And so this is what works for me. I'm not saying that this works for absolutely everyone, but it works for me in terms of, again, balancing and prioritizing the things that I need to do in order to prioritize my buckets and my goals as well as my energy management. 5 p.m. is when I would go for a walk with my dog and family. And then 6 p.m. is dinner and family time. Whether that's a date with one of my kids or a date with my spouse, or if it's just family time together. And then from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., it's getting ready for bed with all the kiddos, which takes about an hour. And then 10 p.m. is when I try to get to sleep. And so I try to color code that so that you can see that the black is the health and the stuff that I'm prioritizing in order to achieve my health goals, as well as some of the energy management techniques to get me through the day. Red is family, blue is work. And so when you look at my calendar here, the black is health and really building my foundation. Blue is all the work. And then 5 p.m. beyond is family. And so this is the ideal setup, but of course, not everything in life is ideal. And so I use this as a bit of a framework that I have in my calendar. But depending on what's going on in the week, there's a lot of flexibility. So for example, I might have a week where I have some events that I need to go to at night. So that unfortunately will take away from some of my family time. There might be a really busy week where I actually need to do some extra work at night. So again, that would borrow from my family time. But what I really try to do and try to be really intentional about is keeping track of that, because I know that if I take too much from my family bucket, that's going to start to break and crack my foundation, which starts to take some of the energy away from me. And so I look at my calendar and do a bit of an audit every single week in terms of my buckets and how well I did, how am I progressing on my goals. and what might I need to do different next week or the week after to try and get some of that balance back into my life. And so it is very rare that I have a week where I get to execute on my perfect ideal day every single day. But what this does, and what research tells us why this is important, is because it creates a bit of cognitive dissonance in your mind. And so basically that's just a fancy word for saying if you understand the ideal of what you want, and then you understand what your reality is, you can start to see the gap. And so what that essentially does is put you in a bit of autopilot where you can kind of bounce back and forth and continue to nudge yourself in such a way where you're constantly striving to move forward to get that ideal day done and balance those buckets overall so that you can, one, accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in your life, as well as feel that happiness and that fulfillment that we all deeply want to feel. So let's dive into your coaching this week. So I essentially want you to do for yourself the exercise that I just showed you how to do and what I do to set myself up in terms of creating that ideal day. So one, I want you to think about the buckets, so the things in your life that are most important to you. Two, I want you to think about the goals for each thing within those buckets so that you understand where your North Star is and where you need to steer your ship, essentially. And then I want you to have some self-reflection around your units. So the things that you need to do throughout your day that's going to help you feel happy and energized. And then take those things and plug it into an ideal day structure for you so that you have that vision and that notion and that guide to help create that cognitive dissonance or that gap analysis, if you will, so that you can constantly monitor what is your reality and how is that leveling up to the vision and the ideal day that you have, and what are the tweaks that you can do along the way so that you can continue to, again, accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish and live a happy and fulfilled life. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If this provided you with any value, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel. Like I said, this is a passion of mine, and as long as I continue to see the community continuing to grow, I have a commitment to all of you to make sure that I am showing up and continuing to work to make this better and better and better so that I can continue to help all of you grow and chase your potential. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, please leave it below, and I'll see you next week.